Hello, dear friends. The word disinformation comes from the Russian term desinformatsiya, which was used against regime dissidents by the Soviet KGB. Opinion piece. Freedom under threat. Fear of borders. Internal threat. Fear of freedom. Retreat of freedom. Time for revelation. Vance rebukes Europe. Mind control of citizens. Springtime of a new era. Global authoritarianism. Dictatorial governments. Freedom is not negotiable. Free speech is undermined. Von der Leyen's face was a poem. Let's start. Free speech is not negotiable, said Vice President Vance on February 14th at the Munich conference, stating that the main threat to Europe is internal, due to the retreat of democratic freedoms. As he declared before more than 60 heads of state or government and 100 ministers of defense or foreign affairs from various countries. Freedom of expression is not negotiable because it is a fundamental pillar of Western democracies. Vance stressed its importance and warned against any attempt to restrict it, whether by governments, lobby groups, or external actors. Vance's remarks could also be interpreted as a political message to reinforce the democratic values shared by the US and Europe. Criticism. Vance accused European governments of censoring free speech and persecuting political opponents. He lashed out at European courts for annulling an election result in the case of Romania and questioned whether Europe is maintaining an adequate standard regarding its democratic values. Speaking at this annual forum for debate on security and defense of leaders from various countries, which is being held from Friday to Sunday, Vance lashed out at European leaders. He accused European leaders of undermining democratic values by trying to regulate alleged hate speech in quotes and censorship on social media, and also of being afraid of their borders, alluding to fears for the advance of freedom. It was quite a poem to watch the strange face of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Vance criticized European countries for moving away from fundamental values shared with the US. He also questioned the annulment of the election result in Romania as in Venezuela, the suppression of anti-woke opinions, and Germany's policy against dissidents. Fortunately, he said, there is a new sheriff in town, in quotes, namely President Trump. Backflow. Vance stressed that the main threat to Europe doesn't come from external actors such as Russia or China, but from within the continent itself. He later said that the greatest danger to Europe is not Russia or China or any other external actor, but it comes from within. Vance accused European governments of being dictatorial and silencing dissident parties. He also criticized the suspension on elections in Romania due to alleged Russian interference and said freedom of expression in Europe is in decline. In quotes, when I look at Europe today, it is not clear what happened to some of the winners of the Cold War, he said. According to Vance, democratic values are declining in EU countries because, for example, a court in Romania annulled the presidential election due to enormous pressure from neighboring countries. The elections were annulled on the grounds of external interference, and Vance disagreed with this argument and in general with accusations of Russian interference in the European elections. In quotes, if democracy in your country can be premised by a few 100,000 messages on social media, then it is not such a strong democracy, he said. Vice President Vance remarks in Munich reflect a concern about the state of democratic freedoms in Europe in a context of rising global authoritarianism, and suggest that internal challenges such as the rollback of these freedoms could be more pressing than external threats. In recent years, some European countries have faced criticism for measures that could be interpreted as a rollback of democratic freedoms, such as restrictions on press freedom, limitations on freedom of assembly, and the use of anti-terrorist laws that could affect civil rights. Vance refers to this repression as an internal threat. Internal challenges. Traditionally, Europe has seen Russia and China as significant external threats, especially in terms of security, political influence, and disinformation. However, Vance seems to suggest that internal challenges, such as the weakening of democratic institutions, could be more dangerous in long term. In quotes, "For years, we have been told that everything we fund is a threat to the European Union, and that we are going to be able to do anything to help us achieve our goals. What we support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our policy on Ukraine to digital censorship is built as defending democracy." Vance told the audience, "But when we see European courts overturning elections and senior officials threatening to overturn others, we should ask ourselves if we are holding ourselves to an appropriate standard," he said. The vice-president defended patriotic parties and criticized their non-invitation to the conference. He noted that voters are electing leaders who promise to end out-of-control immigration, and that these are legitimate issues. He placed mass immigration as a major risk to the European continent and to the US. Vance referred to the multiple carjacking in Munich on Thursday, perpetrated by an Afghan asylum seeker, which left 36 injured. He called mass immigration the most urgent issue of our time. In short, Vance's words underline the importance of protecting democratic freedoms and speech freedom, while inviting reflection of the internal challenges facing Europe. This type of speech is usually a call to action to strengthen democratic institutions and ensure that fundamental values are not compromised. Geopolitics. New geopolitical balance according to Miquel Roqueiro. Two new fronts are emerging in the style of the Cold War. A Western one led by the US and another led by China, which brings together the vast majority of emerging countries, where it is at stake who will be the hegemonic power in the coming decades. We must not forget that the true engine of global growth is China. Investors and journalists seem to have forgotten the drama of war to focus on inflation, interest rates, and the Fed's monetary policy. Inflationary pressure caused by a clear regime change. Thus, the spectre of inflation, which has not been seen since the 80s, has returned to our lives. An excessively indebted world is a world that finds it increasingly difficult to generate growth and consumption as it focuses on repaying debt. Misinformation. The word misinformation was used by Hitler and Stalin to refer to dissidents of their respective dictatorships. The concept of disinformation was developed during the Cold War in propaganda operations. This concept has its roots in propaganda strategies used by various regimes and in the context of the Cold War. The word disinformation comes from the Russian term desinformatsiya, which was used by the Soviet KGB from the 1920s to 30s to refer to propaganda and deception operations aimed at manipulating public perception, both abroad and within the Soviet Union, in the context of a psychological war against the West. On the other hand, the Nazi regime used propaganda strategies extensively under the direction of Joseph Goebbels. Nazi propaganda included the demonization of political opponents. Hitler used the Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda to spread messages that reinforced Nazi ideology and discredited opponents. Stalin, for his part, employed similar methods through state control of the media and censorship, using propaganda to consolidate his power and eliminate his political enemies. Opinions. According to Robbie Starbuck, Vance brought moral clarity back to Europe. Do you know those tyrants who try to take mental control of European citizens? The vice president looked them in the eye and told them their time was up. According to Elon Musk, the nature of NGOs is to have a cause that sounds philanthropic, like Save the Orphans, and then pocket the money and no orphans are helped. A federal judge just sided with Elon Musk and Doge, rejecting an effort to block them from accessing government information systems. According to Poet Talk, the spring of a new era is also a time of revelation, which often occurs in tandem with progressive stages of awakening. He adds that real entertainment is just beginning. When God wants your attention, He will surely get it, because all the distractions, people become more and more detached from themselves and more involved in what they drink or what they actively seek. According to Judy Bington, a global financial meltdown is brewing due to overspending. China and Germany collapsed, banks closed, markets crashed, and Bitcoin stopped trading. According to Namaste, people don't realize that the UN's centralization to achieve zero net emissions is leading to global governance of regions and communities, without the need for general elections. Simone Weil, the philosopher who chose to die to shout the truth with her profound philosophy, focused on justice, spirituality, and the fight against dehumanization. Breaking news. President Trump wants to cut his military budget in half, along with China and Russia. Trump also targets Taiwan. He says, Taiwan took our chips business from us and we want that business back, in quotes. Donald Trump officially declares BRICS dead and claims most of its leaders are too afraid to even mention him. He wants that the BRICS alliance of a 100% tariff hit if they try to bypass the dollar. Putin sends cryptic message to Trump. They are in our house now, according to Michael Baxter. Who attacked the Chernobyl plant with a drone? A drone hit a critical plant in Chernobyl. Russia denies it was that drone. Negotiations begin in Munich between the US and Russia to end the war, and someone is trying to stop them by causing radioactive contamination. Who could it be? Russian government claims drone attack on former Chernobyl nuclear plant was a false flag attack by Zelensky government, not Russian military. Nuclear plant attack comes after Zelensky threatened Trump, according to Sorchaval. RFK Jr. nomination confirmed as Trump attacks Federal Reserve globalist banking cartel, according to Mike Adams. US military will no longer allow transgender people to be recruited and will stop performing procedures associated with gender transition. Special forces rescue children from traffickers in tunnels under Dallas, Texas, according to Michael Baxter. Is Pope Francis about to leave the world stage? He has been admitted to a Rome hospital for treatment of bronchitis. Elon Musk claims to have secret clearance on space and UFOs, suggesting he has knowledge of extraterrestrial matters that he has not publicly revealed. A webcam detected 19 cigar-shaped UFOs live that left the Popocatépetl volcano in Mexico in a coordinated outing. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.